Good evening. Our group reviewed the article Participatory Culture for Social Justice Students Deploying New Media as a Call to Action and Social Change by McCorkle, published in the Journal of Scholarship of Teaching and Learning in 2024. We have Jamie, Ronnie, Bethany, myself, Tracy, and Madison. Next slide. So, a few of the learning objectives. One, we are evaluating how participatory culture frameworks advance student agency and social justice advocacy in higher education settings. We are analyzing the pedagogical implications of integrating digital media artifacts into social work education curricula. We are synthesizing findings from McCorkle to assess the role of scholarship of teaching and learning in transforming social work pedagogy and critically appraising the strengths and limitations of participatory approaches for fostering civic engagement among students. Next slide. And then the purpose of this study, they are exploring the teaching experiences of two university faculty members and guiding students through the development of digital media artifacts distributed online. And they are providing insights and lessons learned for those who want to take on projects like this in their classroom. Traditional assignments, such as essays or research papers, often limit opportunities for students to engage with real world audiences or social issues. And the authors examine whether participatory media projects can provide a more authentic learning experience for students. So in this study, sociology created digital projects highlighting racial inequality on their university campuses, while law students developed digital media artifacts explaining immigration policy and barriers to legal immigration in the United States. Next slide.
So, what are the participatory cultural concepts? This refers to environments where individuals can actively create, share, and engage with content. It involves low barriers to participation, allowing students to easily contribute their ideas. It also emphasizes civic engagement, where youth uses digital platforms to address social and political issues. Through collaboration and networking, students build knowledge together and learn from one another. Participatory culture also values voice and expression, amplifying diverse perspectives. Finally, mentorship and scaffolding support students in participating effectively in responsibility. These concepts help explain how students in McCorkle became active participants and agents of social change. Next slide. There were 5 themes identified in this study. This study by McCorkle highlights how students engage in participatory culture for social justice through 5 key themes. First, student agency and ownership show how learners take control by focusing on issues that matter to them. Second, purpose-driven approaches connect classroom learning to real-world social justice efforts. Third, participatory and collaborative learning emphasizes shared knowledge building and amplify diverse voices. Fourth, digital media as a tool for advocacy enables students to raise awareness and engage in civic action beyond the classroom. And finally, instructional support and scaffolding underscores the educator's role in guiding critical and responsible engagement. Supporting this, Kahn, Lee, and Fiesel found that digital media can significantly increase youth civic and political engagement, especially when students are actively creating and participating online. Next slide.
So some of the key points that this article has that discussed was emergent learning, knowledge building, future professional roles, and social justice. Emergent learning is evident because students do not simply follow a fixed instructional sequence. Instead, new ideas, discoveries, and challenges emerge as they develop their projects. A second important component of the framework is knowledge building. Rather than completing assignments solely for faculty evaluations, students created digital artifacts that contributed to broader public understanding. The framework also highlights preparation for future professional roles. These projects position students as emerging advocates, educators, and communicators by requiring them to translate complex social issues into forms that audiences could understand. This mirrors the kinds of responsibilities students may encounter in future careers, especially in professions that require public engagement, policy interpretation, and advocacy. At the center of the framework is social justice, which gives purpose to the learning process. The projects were intentionally designed to address inequity, challenge misinformation, and raise awareness about issues such as racism and immigration barriers. Next slide, please. Limitations do exist in this study. The findings are based on only 2 faculty participants at a single private university, which limits how broadly the results can be applied to other settings. In addition, the data relied entirely on faculty self-report, meaning the outcomes reflect instructor perceptions rather than direct student voices. Student satisfaction, measurable learning outcomes, and grade comparisons were not collected, making it difficult to fully determine how students experienced the projects or whether learning gains occurred beyond faculty observation. Another limitation is that the researcher had previously supported one of the projects through instructional designs, which may introduce some bias in interpretation.
So for these next 2 slides, I'm going to talk about the artifacts, the sociology artifacts and the law artifacts. For this slide, I want to highlight how sociology students use digital media artifacts to address issues of racial inequality on their university campus. The project asked students to translate sociological research into public-facing digital content designed for an authentic audience beyond the classroom. Students created several types of artifacts. One example included infographics that visualize university data on race and ethnicity. These graphics help make complex institutional data more accessible to students, faculty, and administrators who might not otherwise interpret the data easily. Students also developed an interactive campus map using digital tools such as Google My Maps. This map linked historical archives, photos, and newspaper clippings to specific locations on campus where events related to racial discrimination had occurred. By connecting historical evidence with physical campus spaces, students were able to illustrate how institutional history continues to shape present-day conversations about race. Overall, these digital media artifacts allow students to move beyond traditional writing assignments and instead act as knowledge producers and advocates, using technology to communicate research findings and encourage critical reflection about social justice issues on campus. Next slide, please. The second example comes from a law seminar where students created digital media artifacts focused on immigration policy and legal barriers to enter in the United States. Law students use multimedia tools, including interactive presentations and created with Pedagogy, to illustrate the complex pathways individuals may take towards citizenship or legal residency. Instead of presenting immigration policy as a static legal text, the artifacts visually demonstrated branching scenarios that show how different legal conditions affect immigration outcomes. Students also developed a case study narrative following a family fleeing Honduras and seeking asylum in the United States. Through documentary images, videos, and statistical information, the students contextualized the social and political conditions influencing migration. These artifacts served as an educational purpose by simplifying complicated legal frameworks for a broad public audience. At the same time, they challenged misinformation surrounding immigration policies and encouraged viewers to engage critically with issues related to immigration, reform, and human rights. Together, these examples demonstrate how participatory digital media projects can empower students to use academic knowledge as a tool for public education and social change. Next slide, please.
So we are now at the conclusion and implications for our presentation. Building on the findings my colleagues have presented, I now turn to the critical question this study raises. How does McCorkle's 2024 research reshape what we know about social work education and the scholarship of teaching and learning? Grace Owens and colleagues 2016 challenge our field to bridge the gap between teaching practices and scholarly inquiry. McCorkle's 2024 study answers that challenge directly by positioning students as digital advocates who confront systemic inequities. Participatory culture operationalizes social work's commitment to social justice in ways that traditional pedagogy simply cannot achieve. McCorkle 2024 and Robbins and Singer 2014. These findings reshape 3 domains. First, for social work education, when students create digital media artifacts for authentic audiences, they no longer consume knowledge passively. They produce social change actively. McCorkle 2024. Second, McCorkle 2024 dual context design
advances SoTL by demonstrating that faculty-driven inquiry into participatory pedagogy simultaneously generates scholarly knowledge and transforms student professional development. Third, and perhaps most urgently, as civic discourse migrates to digital platforms, participatory approaches equip emerging social workers with the critical media competencies essential for engaging diverse communities in these evolving spaces. Jenkins et al. 2016, Kayan et al. 2013. The critical appraisal strengths and limitations, yet no study exists without tension, and a rigorous appraisal demands that we weigh these contributions against these boundaries. While the dual discipline design across sociology and law strengthens transferability, the small sample of 2 faculty members at a single institution constraints is general. McCorkle 2024. More critically, the absence of student perspectives limits the study's evaluation scope and silences the very voices this pedagogy seeks to amplify. Furthermore, without direct measurement of learning outcomes, the study weakens the casual claims it implies about pedagogical effectiveness. McCorkle 2024. Next slide, please. So we come to our conclusion, a call to action to transform our practice. So what do we take from this? Across 5 emergent themes, McCorkle 2024 demonstrates that when students create digital artifacts for authentic audiences, they transition from passive learners to active agents of social change, effectively bridging participatory culture theory with the demands of social work practice. McCorkle's 2024 study challenges us to reimagine our classrooms as participatory spaces where students not merely learn about social justice, but actively participate. Based on this critical appraisal, we offer 3 recommendations for advancing the field. First, center students' voices through participatory action research designs. Second, investigate the long-term impacts of participatory pedagogy across diverse institutional contexts. And third, embedded participatory digital pedagogy into social work education competency standards. As doctoral scholars and future educators, the question before us is not whether to integrate participatory digital pedagogy, but how boldly are we willing to transform our teaching to meet this moment? We thank you very much and have a great day.